Are you stuck in tutorial hell, watching endless coding videos? Must you really feeling lost when you try to build something of your own? I know exactly how that feels, because a few years ago, I was there too. I'd spend hours following along with tutorials, a to-do app here, a Twitter clone there, thinking I was learning, but when I stared at a blank code editor without a step-by-step guide, I froze. I was basically acing all the practice quizzes, but then blanking out on the real exam. In the next 20 minutes, I'm going to share with you how I broke out of tutorial hell and the shortcut that I discovered to go from endless learning to actually landing a tech job and building a career in tech. It's not going to be some gimmick or a hack. It's a different approach that really finally clicked it for me, and it might just change how you learn how to code too. So let me just take you back to 2019 when I was still working in venture capital. I was living a pretty decent corporate life, but I had this itch. I was inspired by startup founders and I didn't want to just fund projects. I wanted to build something of my own. So I did something a bit crazy. I basically quit my job to learn how to code full time. And I told myself, all right, it's time to be a software engineer. I was literally just armed with nothing but sheer determination and probably an unhealthy amount of caffeine. I locked myself in my bedroom in KL and I started grinding through online resources pretty much 12 hours a day, coding tutorials, YouTube videos, blog posts, you name it. I've probably tried some parts of it. I dove into web development with Vue.js and React. I played around with Node.js and Express.js. I even dabbled around with tools like Hasura, Supabase, and stuff like that. Every day I'd wake up, I'd plop down on my desk, and I follow along with whatever tutorial was on the menu that day. And you know what? In the beginning, it felt great. It's so fun and easy to just hit run on someone else's code and see a couple of cute projects come to life. But after a few months, a harsh reality set in. Despite completing hundreds of projects and tutorials, I still couldn't build something of my own. If you dropped me into a real project, I wouldn't know where to start. It was really demoralizing because I remember opening up VS Code to try to code a simple idea that I had, and I just stared at the screen, realizing that I had no roadmap, no tutorial to follow. And this was exactly when I found out that I was stuck in this thing called the tutorial hell, which is the vicious loop where you keep watching or reading tutorials because you secretly feel you're not ready to code yourself. So I basically finished one course and immediately I'll think, maybe I should just do another one to cover all the bases. And then I'd sign up for another one and another, and basically get addicted to the comfort of tutorials. And the moment they get tough, I was like, you know what, maybe let me try out Python now. And I go through this whole loop again to try things on Python. And when it started getting hard for Python, I do the same thing for Ruby and Rails and whatnot, right? So they were like a junk food. They made me feel good in the moment, but they left me hungry for real understanding. I was consuming tons of chips, so to speak, but I was getting zero protein, which is what actually matters. To make things worse, I kept getting distracted by shiny objects. One week, I'd be convinced that I needed to learn digital marketing. The next, I was like, oh, that's a bit tough. Let me go and check out crypto and Web3. And then, I was like, okay, this is a bit fluffy. Let me check out UI, UX design and product management. And it was like I was just spinning a wheel of tech buzzwords and chasing whatever that it landed on. Don't get me wrong. All those skills are great, and honestly speaking, they eventually helped me in my journey, but doing a bit of everything meant I wasn't getting really good at one thing. So I had 1,000 browser tabs open in my brain and I had no clear path. And after about 8 months of this self-imposed bootcamp, I hit one of my lowest points in life where I had no income. I was burning through my savings from my previous job. I felt isolated and I started doubting myself deeply. I'd be thinking, maybe I'm just not cut out to be a programmer, or, all these other people on YouTube make it sound way too easy. So why am I struggling? Imposter syndrome was in a full swing. And I remember some nights staring at the ceiling, genuinely wondering if I should just quit and crawl back to the corporate career with my tail between my legs, right? It was that bad. Then something that happened that really changed everything, because a friend of mine who had a first class honors degree, an IT degree, he reached out to me and I've been telling my friends that I was learning how to code. So he knew that I've been coding on my own, and he asked, almost sheepishly, if I could help him prepare for a technical interview, right? And this guy was way more qualified than me on paper than I was, right? He had a degree that I didn't. He went to a pretty good university and all that. So I thought, what could I possibly have to offer him? But he was so worried that he was going to flunk the coding test portion of this global tech company interview. So we set up a call and went through some practice problems together. And the interesting thing is he struggled tremendously, like big time, even on some really basic problem solving questions. He was getting stuck and stumbling. And so I started guiding him, and I was teaching him things like, try thinking about it this way? What if you used, this algorithm here? Did you consider the time complexity of sorting first? That kind of stuff, right? We went through question after question, and I was essentially guiding him and learning together with him on how to solve them. And in the end, I pretty much solved all the practice problems for him. And when the call ended, I had this moment of clarity. I sat back and thought, wait a minute, how is it that I, the self-taught newbie without a formal CS education, could handle these questions that an IT graduate couldn't, right? I realized that I wasn't as clueless as I'd been telling myself. Sure, I was lacking confidence, but I actually had learned a lot in those 8 months of grinding, and the fundamentals I picked up from countless nights of coding sessions were starting to form in my head. And that's when I also kind of realized to myself that the whole process of learning how to code and solving problems, it's so difficult, it's so draining, that even if someone went through a degree and passed the degree, everybody had to go through that level of thinking computationally to actually be a software developer. The paper certs here don't really matter, right? And that's when I realized the way universities and traditional ways of weighing whether or not someone's doing well in school, they just don't work. And this experience, it gave me a lot of confidence and a lot of realization. So for the first time in nearly a year, I felt like, okay, I can do this. I might not know everything, right? No one does. But I now know that I was at least good enough to add value to someone who is entry level. So I often think back to that day, and because it taught me an important lesson, that you often underestimate how much you've learned until you're thrown into a situation where you have to use it. It's like training in the gym without a mirror. You don't see your progress until one day you lift a weight that used to seem impossible, and you're like, hey, I could do it. So I was really encouraged by that small victory. I decided to test myself in the real world. No more tutorial projects. I wanted real projects with real stakes on my hand. So through some networking and hustle, I landed a small freelance gig, building some simple web application websites. I charged the client around $3,000 for it, and which at the time felt like a fortune because, remember, I was unemployed for 8 months. So to my surprise, I pulled it off. The client was happy, and off that momentum, another project came in where he introduced me his friend, and it was a bigger one for $10,000. And then soon after that, another one for $40,000. And all of this happened in the span of a month or two. And suddenly this failure of a self-taught coder that I labeled myself in my mind was actually making money from building software. So that was a few years ago, and I can't even describe how exhilarating that was, right? Partly for the money. I mean, going from nothing to 3K to 10K to 40K dollars. It was all huge deals to me when I was broke, but mostly for the validation. It was like the universe was telling me, see, you're pretty much a developer now. People are trusting you to build things, and you're delivering, right? And I think it's in these paid projects where you kind of learn how to solve problems better, because you cannot hide away from the requirements that your clients have. If you're building your own personal project where no one pays you, no one holds you accountable, you will always try and take the easy way out. Like if a certain feature was a bit tough, you're going to be like, you know what, I don't have to do that. Then you just never get around to learning how to solve that problem, and you're just always stuck at a barrier. But when you're solving a real world project for a paid project, you have to, by hook or by crook, get it done for your clients. And that's a big part of where my learning came from. So, that was a huge moment of relief, a huge moment of pride, and a huge moment of hell yeah, I did it. So I wish I could tell you from that point on, it was smooth sailing, but oh boy, the journey, it had other plans. With real projects and real money came a new set of challenges, because how the heck am I going to deliver on these bigger and bigger and bigger projects, right? The $3K project, I could do it solo, right? The 10K one was harder, but I could still kind of do it solo, right? But Googling every messages furiously and learning on the fly, it was just really hectic. And by the time the $40,000 project kicked in, I knew I was in over my head as a one-man army. So there were parts of my projects that required skills that I was just really shaky on, and I needed help. So I did what any sensible new founder or a project lead would do. I tried to hire developers to join me. Now, keep in mind, I was just a guy in his bedroom with a makeshift software agency, and by agency, it was basically just me and my laptop. But I had money from the project, so I figured I could pay a couple of junior developers or interns to help me build this thing. So I started interviewing candidates, lots of them. In fact, over a few weeks, I interviewed over 100 people for junior developer roles, and most of these people were fresh graduates with computer science degrees, and they had a resume. Some even had internship experience. On paper, they looked pretty cool, pretty good. Yet interview after interview after interview, I kept encountering the same issues. They couldn't code. And I'm not talking about super advanced stuff. I'm talking entry-level, FizzBuzz, basic web app kind of stuff. Many couldn't even explain to me how a simple algorithm worked, how to structure a basic web application. I would ask them things like, how will you design a database, or for, say, a simple e-commerce store, and I'll get blank stares of very shaky answers. Some of them just read off an AI can answer, then they think I'm dumb, right? If I ask them to write a simple function, some would just trip on basic logic or syntax. And it was just really shocking moment in my life. And remember, just a few months ago, I was the one feeling unqualified. And now I was in the interviewer seat thinking, wait, how did these folks spend 3 to 4 years in university and still come up not job ready. It wasn't just 1 or 2 outliers. Honestly, I would estimate maybe only 1 out of 10 people I spoke to actually had the skills that we need, despite all of them holding degrees. So this was an eye-opener because it made me realize again and again that a CS degree does not correlate to someone being able to code. Yes, maybe some people can code, in a CS degree program. That's cool, but they can't. It's not that they can code because of the CS degree program. They probably had to do a lot of self-learning outside of the degree. So this made me realize that my friend, the CS graduate that I was talking about, who struggled with the coding test, he was not an exception at all. He was the tip of the iceberg. There's a huge gap between what traditional education teaches and what the tech industry actually expects from developers. And now with AI, it's even worse because there's even lesser incentive for someone to crack their heads and figure out how to solve problems computationally. When it gets tough, they're just, copy paste this, throw it to AI and get the answers from there, right? I'm not saying AI is bad, but I'm just saying that in the process of building your foundations and the pillars of your experience when it comes to building software, you need to crack your heads a little bit and build that programming muscle. You can't just outsource all the thinking to AI. But coming back to my point here, computer science programs churn out graduates who know theory and they can write academic code, but many of them just haven't built a real-world application from scratch. And they've done assignments and passed exams, sure, but nobody taught them how to actually build software end-to-end or try to troubleshoot in a real environment. I vividly remember one night after a long day of disappointing interviews, I sat down and I really thought deeply, this felt bigger than me. Why were so many smart, educated people struggling to do actual software development work? Why did I struggle until I brute forced my way through it? I started scribbling notes and trying to break the problem down just like I would debug code. So when faced with any complex problem, I like to apply some first principles thinking. Right? Shout out to heroes of mine like Charlie Munger and Naval Ravikant, who always emphasizes on going back to fundamentals. Yeah, so I basically asked what's the root cause of tutorial hell and why are traditional pathways not delivering job-ready developers? I boiled it down to 2 big issues, which is number 1, the way that we're learning code is kind of flawed. Many tutorials and classrooms teach you how to follow instructions, not how to think for yourself as a coder. They handhold you through building a project, but they don't teach you how to start from a problem and to craft a solution from zero. It's like learning to cook by only ever assembling IKEA meal kits. Sure, you end up with a dish, but give you a raw potato and some spices and you will be lost. And often these learning resources overload you with a lot of theory and a lot of niche knowledge that you won't actually use yet. I saw it in a college grad. They knew all about time and space complexity, and they could maybe even explain what a B tree is, but they haven't used a web framework to actually build simple CRUD applications, and the curriculum was so outdated by the time that they graduated. By contrast, the stuff that the industry needs today, say building a REST API or understanding how to deploy an app to the cloud, these things were either skimmed over or they were just not covered at all at school. So no wonder there's a skills mismatch. And I realized I fell into the same trap in the self-taught way. I was picking up bits and pieces from all over the places, but without a clear structure of fundamental skills. The tutorials gave me fish, but they didn't teach me how to fish, right? I knew how to follow the steps to make a React app, for example, but I didn't truly grasp why React works the way it does, or how a web browser and a server communicate at a fundamental level. So in other words, my foundations were just pretty much really shaky. Number 2, we lack the environment to apply and reinforce the skills. Coding is a practical skill and you learn by doing, yet so many of us, my past self included, spend 90% of our time just watching someone else do it. That's completely backwards. Imagine trying to learn the guitar by watching guitar tutorials all day, but rarely picking up your own guitar. Your fingers wouldn't know where to go on the fretboard when you finally try. Coding is the same. You have to get your hands on the keyboard and build and break and fix things to really get it. For me, I had a big aha moment, which is that doing real projects for 10 hours will teach you so much more than 100 hours of watching tutorials or lectures. I wasn't lacking more video courses. I was lacking practice and experience. All those CS grads that I met, they lacked experience too. That's all they lacked. Not IQ points, not theory, but just the time, the brute time, the grunt hours when it comes to just spending time building software, right? Another part of the environment I would say could be accountability and support. So when you're learning alone, whether in a self-study scenario or even in a big uni lecture hall, it's easy to fall off track. There's no one really checking if you're coding or just passively watching. There's no one to help you when you hit a wall except Stack Overflow. which, let's be honest, sometimes feels like drinking from a fire hose. And there's no one saying, hey, I believe you can do this, when you're doubting yourself. I realized that the lack of community and mentorship was a huge reason why I struggled. If I hadn't eventually connected with a more experienced friend who became my mentor and CTO later, I may have given up. So to sum up the diagnosis, people end up in tutorial hell because fundamentals are not solid and because it's scary to leave the comfort zone of guided learning. Tutorials make you feel really good, like you accomplished something, like you're making progress, and they often gamify the whole system, but often you haven't internalized the knowledge, and stepping out of that to do a real project is intimidating. It was for me until I was almost forced into it, right? So let's talk about the fear, because it's a huge part of this. I realize now that a lot of my time in tutorial hell was actually procrastination driven by fear. The fear of failure, the fear of discovering that I wasn't actually good enough, the fear of the unknown. It was so much safer to stay in the kiddie pool where someone tells you click here, type this, and voila, right? Than it is to jump into the ocean and swim in it and drown a little bit, right? Like how it's like oftentimes in a real project. So I see this in many aspiring developers. Some of them accumulate courses and certifications, like they're collecting Pokemon cards. They tell themselves one more course and then I'll be ready to build my own project. Actually, maybe one more after that, and I should probably get that AWS cert too before I apply to jobs, and on it goes. Next thing you know, years pass and they're still in the same place, just with more PDFs and certificates. They've become what I call a forever student, always learning and never doing. Now, I love learning. Don't get me wrong. Lifelong learning is great, but you can't simulate the real thing forever. In universities, I saw people who just kept staying in academia for the fear of facing the job market. They would finish undergrad, then they would do a master's, and then a second master's in something else, and maybe even a PhD, all the while avoiding the question of what value can I create in the real world. It's like being stuck in a perpetual training montage that never leads to the actual championship match. I had my own version of this. I delayed applying for any developer jobs or truly committing to freelancing for the longest time because I thought, I'm not ready, I need to know more, I need a bit more time. The irony is when I actually jumped in and did it, I learned 10 times on the job than I did just pursuing tutorials. Yes, I made mistakes. Yes, I hit bugs I had no clue about. I promised to deliver a tech stack that I never even touched, right? But every time I faced a problem and solved it, after a lot of hair pulling and Googling, that knowledge really stuck because it became a part of my core muscle memory. I'll give you a little analogy I learned from a mentor. Or being a martial arts fan, I love this one because it's like this. In boxing, there are people who are amazing at hitting pads and heavy bags in the gym with perfect form and fancy combos, but the first time they get punched in the face in a real sparring match, a lot of that just goes out the window. They might even panic or forget a few combos. We call them the pad champions. They look really good in practice, but they've never been hit back. Similarly, coding tutorials won't hit you back. Real projects will. You got to get to sparring. That's how you learn, right? Your code doesn't work. There's no walkthrough video to tell you why. That's a punch in the face. It's good for you in moderation, of course. Like you gotta tweak the level of difficulty here, right? It forces you to learn and to adapt and to debug and to problem solve in real time. So if you catch yourself hiding in tutorials out of fear, remind yourself the real growth happens when you step into the ring. It will be uncomfortable. You will feel stupid sometimes. I still do sometimes, trust me. But that's how we level up. Every developer you admire has gone through that. In fact, being a good developer means constantly feeling a bit out of your depth, just a bit out of your depth, because you're always encountering new problems, and that's normal. It doesn't mean you're not meant for this. It means that you're doing it right. It means you're learning and growing. All right, so I mentioned just now that I'm going to talk to you about the shortcut from tutorial hell to a tech job. It's time to pay that off. It's time to talk about it. I'll tell you up front, it's not some super secret framework or a magic learn to code in 7-day scheme. It's something really simple that we often overlook because it's so damn straightforward. Look, it's simple, but it's not easy. It's so straightforward. So the shortcut is learn just enough to get started, then immediately start building real things. Repeat the cycle, and that's it, right? You might be thinking, that's it? Come on, right? Give me something more, right? Let me break it down because there's some nuance here. Number one, learning just enough, right? This means focusing on the core fundamentals first, but don't overdo the upfront learning. For web development, for example, this might be understanding how the web works, HTML, CSS, JavaScript basics, what a server is, what an API is, learning a programming language, learning just the basics of one language, say JavaScript or Python. Just learn the syntax and basic constructs, and maybe one framework once you have the vanilla basics down. For example, learn basic JavaScript, then learn React basics, but you don't need to learn every single concept in computer science before you start doing stuff. You don't need to master algorithms up to lead code hard level, or know 3 different databases, or memorize every method in the standard library. Just get a grasp of the basics that apply to the kind of projects that you want to build. Number 2 would be to just quickly build something real. As soon as you got the basics, you got to apply them on projects that interest you or that solves a problem, something that you care about, right? Because that motivation will carry you through the tough parts. It could be a simple app or a website that doesn't need to be a startup worthy or an original. The key is that you are in the driver's seat now. No tutorial telling you, now type this, press enter here, click that. You will have to decide what features it has, how does it look, how to implement them, what tech stack to use to figure out as you go. This is where you will suddenly realize what you don't know. And that's good, because now when you go back to look up a tutorial or documentation, it's with a purpose to solve a specific problem in your project. This is what you call just-in-time learning versus hoarding the knowledge that you might need in the future. And the third step, basically repeat and level up. Once you finish a project, or even as you're in the middle of it, you find you've learned a ton. You've likely also solidified your fundamentals much more. So now pick the next slightly more ambitious project and add complexity to the existing one. Maybe learn a new tool or 2 if the project calls for it, or contribute to an open source project, or volunteer to build a website for a local business. Anything that puts you in a real scenario with real users or real stakeholders. This cycle is essentially what I followed unknowingly at first to get out of my rut, right? Remember my story. I learned a bunch of basics, too much honestly, right? Then I was forced to build real projects for real clients that paid me money. That's when my skills really jumped. The shortcut was compressing the time spent in pure learning mode and moving into hands-on mode much earlier. Later on, when I started mentoring others and eventually launched my own coding school, I structured the whole program around this idea, right? At Sigma School, our coding bootcamp is designed so that you cover the foundations quickly but solidly, right? And then you spend the bulk of the time building projects with guidance. We throw challenges at students that simulate real-world tasks. For example, one week you might be building a full-stack application that lets you track your fitness goals. Another week you might be cloning a bit of an e-commerce website's functionality, but without step-by-step instruction. Instead, you get the requirements and some support from mentors, and you have to figure out the rest your own, right? It's essentially a safe space to experience the real thing. And guess what? It's hard. Students struggle, some drop out, right? Just like I did. They get frustrated sometimes, but they come up the other side so much more confident and job ready. I've had students who started thinking they'd never be able to do it, and by the end they're like, bring it on, throw me in a real development team, give me a difficult project, I can handle it. And that transformation is everything. Now, I wouldn't lie to you, doing it this way, diving into projects early, means you're going to hit walls and feel uncomfortable, but you would rather have those, oh no, I have no idea how to do this moments while you're in a learning program or a side project than on the job where you're being paid to know what you're doing. It's better to simulate those challenges during learning. A huge part of making this shortcut work is having some kind of support system or feedback loop. For me, I eventually had mentors and a community of fellow learners. For you, that could mean joining a bootcamp or finding a study group or an online community. There are so many Discord servers and stuff, or even just one friend who's learning with you. Surround yourself with people on the same journey or with folks a step ahead of you who can pull you up. It keeps you accountable and it keeps you sane. When I was learning solo, my motivation went up and down like a roller coaster. It was only when I plugged into a community that I really started to consistently grind through the challenges. If you don't have a community, here's the tip: just build in public. That means share your learning journey on Twitter, on LinkedIn, on a blog, whatever. I did that on LinkedIn. I would post about things that I learned for all projects that I finished. Not only did it keep me on track, but because now people expect updates, but I also got encouragement and sometimes helpful tips from experienced developers, and could even lead to job opportunities because people notice consistent learners, right? They see your progress and they're like, wow, this guy, improved a lot, and I could see how I can try and get this guy in my team, right? So let me rewind to my story a bit to tell you how all these realizations turned into me co-founding my own coding school, because trust me, I did not start out with that intention. I was just a rookie developer trying to survive at first. After I went through those freelance projects and struggled to hire good developers, I started thinking somebody should really fix this gap in tech education. And there I was, a beneficiary of self-learning, but also a victim of its inefficiencies. And I was seeing so many others falling through the cracks. And I initially thought, maybe I could partner with universities or something to help them improve. But you can imagine telling these big institutions, hey, your curriculum is outdated, it doesn't get you far as a 20-something nobody. So then I looked at coding bootcamps out there. Some were good and many were not great. A lot of them were super expensive, like tens of thousands of dollars, which was way out of reach for a lot of people in my country, Malaysia, unless you take a huge loan. And even then, not all bootcamps gave you any form of money back guarantee. Some were more like, I will teach you fast, but good luck on the job hunt, right? I knew from my own experience and from those 100+ interviews that I did that just completing a course doesn't automatically make you feel competent unless it's done correctly and unless it's done right. So in 2020, I started a small course community, basically an affordable full stack development program where students could learn together and I would guide them here and there. It was kind of a minimum viable product for what would become Sigma School. To my surprise, it took off. I think people were craving a no BS practical approach. That little course ended up helping a lot of folks, and it even brought in over $100,000 in revenue that year, and all online without me needing to do any hardcore sales. It was just me sharing what I learned in a structured way, and it resonated with a lot of people. So by 2022, I decided to go all in. I officially launched Sigma School with one big mission: to create a direct path from learning to earning in tech. No fluff, no waste of time, and with a lot of accountability and outcomes focused. Remember the note that I scribbled: whoever owns the pipeline to tech talent wins the game. I kept on thinking that. I wanted Sigma School to be that pipeline. Great for students and great for employers who need competent developers. We started crafting a program that cut out all the unnecessary academic stuff and doubled down on the practical stuff. A few principles we followed: we didn't need PhD lecturers to teach basic coding. We needed industry practitioners who knew what skills actually mattered. We focused on learning by doing, like I mentioned, 10 hours of project work versus 100 hours of lectures. And then we realized that content wasn't a problem. There's a bunch of tutorials out there. Instead, we gave our students what really lacked in self-study, which is accountability, support, and motivation. We evolved into this peer-to-peer mentor-guided learning environment. Think of it like a coding bootcamp meets team project meets apprenticeship. Students don't just learn from instructors and mentors, they learn from each other too, in groups, which is possible, which is exactly what happens in real development teams. We wanted to simulate the workforce as much as possible. No more classrooms where one teacher lectures and students quietly listen. We have workshops, discussions, pair programming, daily stand-ups. It's very much an active learning process. One big bold move we made in 2023 would be to put our money where our mouths were, and we launched a new coding bootcamp model with a money-back guarantee. We say join our 3-month coding bootcamp, and if you don't land a job in tech after graduating, we will refund 100% of your tuition, which is a full money-back guarantee. And that felt crazy and scary back then, but it also felt right because it forced us to align our success and our incentives with our students' success completely. I used to think of it this way: universities make money even if their graduates fail to get jobs. There's no accountability there, and that's what explains all the really old school, outdated curriculum, and that's what explains the talent gap in most industries today. We wanted to be the opposite of that. If our students fail, we fail. As simple as that. To support this, I personally got involved in the career side of things. I didn't want to just dump coding knowledge on people and say, see ya, good luck in your interview, right? We built in career coaching, resume workshops, mock interviews, and started partnering up with companies. I was reaching out to my network, basically telling companies, look, we have these hungry, skilled junior developers. Let's give them a shot, right? Take a look at that. We grew a network of 30 or today 50 plus hiring partners in Malaysia and Singapore and quite a few different countries. Companies that trusted our program and were eager to interview our graduates. And guess what? The results has been amazing. Our graduates started landing jobs left and right, some even before officially graduating from the program. Almost 80% of everybody who graduated has gotten a job if they're looking for it, right? We've had people from all walks of life. One was a medical doctor who wanted a career change. One was a gig delivery writer from a low-income background, and they went through our program and came out as a software developer in good jobs. Seeing someone switch from a completely unrelated field into tech in a matter of months is like watching a life transform in real time, and it's addictively rewarding. Now, I say all this not to brag on my program, even though I'm super proud of it, but to illustrate the point. The shortcut works, it's repeatable, and it's not just me who got lucky with it. If you focus on the fundamentals, if you learn by doing with or without a bootcamp, if you have the right support systems, you can compress years of learning into months and get industry ready faster than most will think possible. We had to prove that to ourselves, hence all the experimentation and the eventual guarantee. Another thing I'm proud of is that we've kept the program accessible. A typical coding degree might cost you, I don't know, $30,000 US, $50,000 US, or even more. And that's surprising in Malaysia. Look, right? In the US, I bet it's way more than that, right? But our bootcamp at the full price is around what, $3,000 US, and we often have discounts or financing plans to bring it closer, to bring it way lower than that. And again, if this doesn't work out for you, we don't keep your money. We also run a lot of free workshops, we run events, and even have free coding learning app for you to try it out for free. And these free resources are there because I genuinely believe in giving everyone a chance to get started, to taste coding without the barriers, and education should not be a privilege. Now, a lot of you might be thinking, this sounds good, right? But we're in 2025, AI is writing code now. Is becoming developer still a viable path? It's a question I get asked a lot these days, and it's one I ponder myself as tools like GPT-4, Copilot have exploded in popularity. hierarchy. Here's my take. It's something I feel more strongly about after integrating AI into our curriculum. Yes, it absolutely still makes sense to learn coding, arguably more than ever. AI is an amazing tool. We use AI to enhance the learning experience. Our platform has AI that can help check our students' code, provide hints, and even simulate a pair programming buddy experience when they're stuck. We also teach students how to use tools like ChatGPT and Copilot and Cursor to speed up their development and workflow. The key phrase here is speed up, not replace. AI can generate code, sure, but here's what people misunderstand. AI is only as good as the prompt and the guidance you give it, and it can't, at least currently, it can't truly design a complex system from scratch without human architects. I often tell people AI is like a junior developer with infinite speed and questionable reliability. It will happily crank out code for you, but you need to be a senior developer in the group, the one who knows what should be built, what lines of code to merge, and to review and fix the AI's output. If you go into zero coding knowledge and ask ChatGPT to build an app, you'll get something, but you won't know if it's any good, and you won't understand until it breaks, and you certainly won't be able to extend or maintain it effectively. In fact, companies tell me that they are desperate looking for developers who know how to leverage AI effectively. Those who don't know how to use AI are falling behind, and those who do use AI but lack solid fundamentals produce garbage output because they take the AI's word for gospel. The sweet spot is a developer who has a strong fundamental and knows how to use AI as a force multiplier. That person is not just a regular developer, that's a 10x developer in productivity. And that could be you. If you build those skills, the gap between engineers who leverage AI coding tools and those who don't is widening, and it's creating even more demand for the ones who can combine coding skills with AI savvy. Let's bust another myth. Will AI take all the programming jobs? I say no, it will change them, not replace them outright. When calculators became common, did accountants disappear? No, their jobs just evolved. They focus more on strategy and analysis instead of arithmetic by hand. Similarly, as AI takes over some of the groundwork of coding, like writing boilerplate code or basic functions, developers will move up the value chain, focusing on higher level problem solving and thinking, architecture and integrating complex systems and fine-tuning AI generated code. There will be new jobs too, prompt engineers, AI integration specialists. Many of will require a coding background. Just think about all the tech around us today that still needs humans in the loop. Someone has to build the AI tools themselves, right? Someone has to use AI to create new applications in healthcare, education, and finance, you name it. And those applications are not going to be one-click solutions. They will be built by teams of developers, maybe using AI. In 2025 and beyond, I foresee the best software teams will be human AI hybrid teams. So you want to be on that team, you need to bring something to the table, which is your creativity and your understanding of user needs, your problem solving, and your coding skills to direct the AI. So to share another quick personal example, I mentioned earlier my startup Job Here. It's an AI powered platform that automatically finds and applies to jobs for people. We built this in 2025 early this year, and right in the thick of the AI boom, I had to integrate multiple AI services, design algorithms to match descriptions to resumes and ensure the system worked reliably. I lean on AI where it helped. For instance, using language models to tailor cover letters, but a huge chunk of the work was good old-fashioned coding and software engineering, designing the database, writing the business logic, handling errors, building the web interface. AI didn't magically glue all that together. We, the developers, did. And now Job Here is something pretty cool. It even works while you sleep, a personal job agent that never gets tired. The point is, if I or my team didn't have solid coding skills, we couldn't have built this product. So don't buy into the doom and gloom that learning to code is dead end because of AI. Instead, see it as learning to code plus learning to use AI as the winning combo. In our bootcamp, our full stack web development with AI course is literally structured to teach both simultaneously. You build your web applications and you also build AI features into them, or use AI to build faster. That's because we know employers want that. It's future proofing for you. All right, you know what? Enough plugging, enough. I think I've shared enough. Final words of advice is whether you join a bootcamp or you go solo or somewhere in between, the power is in your hands. You have to take the initiative. You have to be okay with not knowing everything and moving forward anyway. Trust that, yes, you will feel like a noob sometimes, but every expert was once a noob who kept going. The difference between those who make it and those who do not often comes down to who kept on going when it got tough. If I could go back to and talk to 2019 me, the one sweating in his room and feeling like a fraud, I'd say you're doing fine. Just keep building, keep seeking feedback, and never give up, and don't be afraid to ask for help. You're closer than you think, and I will say that to you now, you're closer than you think. The next tutorial that you're considering, maybe you don't actually need it right now. Maybe you already have enough knowledge to start building something and learn the rest as you go. I challenge you, yes, you watching this, if you watch this far, I challenge you to do one thing this week that scares you a bit on your journey. Submit a job application for a junior developer role, even if you don't feel ready. Start a personal project, release something small to the public, ask someone to code review your project, and embrace for feedback. Growth lies in those uncomfortable steps, remember that. And hey, if you need someone to cheer you you on. Let me know. I'm active on LinkedIn and in our community. Come and tell me what you've been building, what you're struggling with. I love this stuff. I could talk about it all day. You can see me ranting here for like half an hour plus, 40 minutes now. I genuinely want to see you succeed. So whether or not you ever spend a dime on my business, I don't really care, right? If you found this valuable, please do hit the like button and maybe subscribe. And I try to keep it 100% honest and useful here, bridging that gap between education and industry, and also share it with your friends, right, who might be stuck in tutorial hell. Let's pull everyone out of the abyss together. Yeah, so I think that's about it. Thank you for spending your time with me. Now go on and build your stuff, and see you on the other side.